Movies, TV, and books are great means of escape. Escape from the everyday world, our everyday problems, even if it's just for 2 hours, or in some movies' cases now 3 hours, or however long we decide to binge a TV show. Now, I probably don't have to tell most of you guys that, because that's what you do. That's why you're watching my channel. But what makes these things great is when we fall in love with characters or stories and we want to learn more. Now, sometimes we're lucky enough to get that, whether it's another book, another season, a sequel, whatever. But we don't always get them. And there's sometimes parts of stories, movies that I wish we'd gotten to know a little bit more about that. You know, what exactly happened that we didn't see? Well, that's where tie-ins come in, and they're fantastic. Now, I use the word tie-ins very loosely here because we can also get sequels. Maybe there's a movie that only got one film, didn't do well enough at the box office to warrant another one, but somebody has an idea or somebody wants to tell more of that story. How did they get it out? Probably through a book. Now, sometimes, like with Marvel, you do get TV shows, whether that's WandaVision or Secret Invasion that just ended, but those are just some examples and they don't always happen. So how are these tie-ins or sequel novels? Well, sometimes they can be really good. Sometimes they add to the story, they add to the characters that we loved. We get to find out what happened to them that we didn't get to see on screen. We get to find out what happens after the film rolls credits. But sometimes they don't always succeed either. I mean, sometimes they might take away from our enjoyment of the film or the TV show. That is a more rarity. Or sometimes they just don't work. Maybe there's even a part that doesn't quite fit with what we saw. Real quick example of this is the Star Wars stories that are based on the actual films. There's a lot of contradictions in them. But with that being said, these can generally be fun. For me, I find them very interesting. I like seeing what other people think happened, or if we're lucky and it's an official part of the story or an official sequel, that's even better. So I recently finished 2 such novels. One was Aladdin, Far from Agrabah, and the other was All Hail the Pumpkin Queen. So these are 2 novels based on movies, one of which is a sequel for Nightmare Before Christmas, and one that happens during the movie, that being Aladdin. So, depending on which video you clicked on, here is a quick review of one of those 2 books. While I'm not as big a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas as I know some people are, for example, I don't have any pops, I don't have a backpack of it, I don't have plushies, I don't have figurines of it. All I have is the movie. But I do watch it every year at Christmas time. Yes, to me, it is a Christmas movie. And I really enjoy it because it's claymation and I find that interesting and I love the songs. But this isn't a review of the movie. So I was definitely interested in reading, or as I did, listen to this sequel to the movie called Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. Yes, I know I said in the intro it was All Hail the Pumpkin Queen. I keep getting them mixed up in my head. They just sound similar. I apologize, but it is Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. So I did already know basically what this story was about. I knew the, I guess, twists and turns, the secrets it revealed before going in and reading it, or like I said, listening to it. I'm not going to reveal them here, but let's start off with the positives of this book. first and foremost, it's a very overall solid story. The plots are good, the twists and turns are fantastic, and it's a good continuation for these characters, for this story, to the point that I actually wanted to see this as a movie. You know, yes, it would have been great to see it as claymation, but I don't need it to be claymation. I would have been perfectly happy with this being a normal, unique animated movie. You know, like I said, it didn't have to be claymation. But I really thought the story was good. I liked the ideas it presented. I liked the character work we did, especially for Sally, since this story primarily focuses on her. I mean, the Pumpkin Queen is her now, and that's in the title. And that is another big pro. We get a lot more time with Sally. Again, obviously, based on the synopsis and the title of the book. So we get to learn more about her history. We learn a little bit more about just what her hopes were, what her dreams were, how she's feeling about the fact that she is now the Pumpkin Queen, that she's married to Jack, how people view her. You know, we get to dive in a little bit more into her psyche, and this book ultimately is, like I keep saying, is about her, reveals her histories, reveals her pasts. And I do like that we get to dive into a few more of the holiday towns. And I feel like those would have been really cool to see in animation. Like I said, I think this whole story would have been a good animated film. Would I have loved it in claymation? Yes. But I think it would just be interesting to see it done with these voices, or the voices that we know, and some additional songs, see what they would be like. So yeah, in general, I say it's a good, solid story about Sally, good continuation. And yeah, that's basically my positivity I have for this book. But moving on to the cons about it, the first one I have is that the characters, a lot of the characters just really seem unlikable. I mean, yes, there are definitely some that you're supposed to dislike. The main villain or villains of the story, obviously. But the townspeople, they, in the movie, they are fun, they're engaging, and they seem nice overall, except, of course, for Oogie Boogie and the trick-or-treaters. But in this book, it just feels like they're very, I don't want to say inconsistent with their movie versions, but it feels like they just really look down on Sally. And I didn't get that from the movie. I mean, maybe it was in there, but it just feels like they really are like, why, Jack? You could have anybody. Why did you pick her? At the same time, though, maybe it's all in her head. I guess that could be another way to look at it. But some of the characters also are not that they're unlikable, they're just annoying. And again, that's probably part of their personality and the way they are supposed to be. But it just feels like it's not, they're not as likable as the actual movie is. I mean, even Oogie Boogie, you don't like him because he's a bad guy, but he's entertaining and he's fun. The villain here, yeah, not really entertaining. His backstory, kind of complicated. And the other, I'm just gonna say, in my mind, they're villains of the piece, of the story. I just feel like you're supposed to like them or you're supposed to understand them, and they're not really given their moment to make you feel that way about them. Talking about characters, Jack feels different. Now, yes, he does change by the end of the movie. His personality is a little different. He's obviously in love with Sally, and by the time the book happens, they are married, and all these things. So he has changed from being a single skeleton. Now he likes being the Pumpkin King again. But I think part of the problem is it's like it just jumps right into it. I don't think we get enough time really with this version of Jack before we jump into, oh, we're going on a honeymoon, we're doing these things. I feel like you need a little more time to get used to this new version of Jack before we get to go into everything. But he's just not in it really enough to, to really let us understand and grasp the concept that this is a slightly different Jack from the one we were with most of Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, sorry, making sure I get everything. Knowing the twist of this book for me before reading it or listening to it, I was waiting for it. I'm like, okay, when are we going to get to this? When are we going to get to these reveals? When are we going to get this information? And it felt like we didn't really get it until over halfway through the book. It felt like it came closer to the end, and I feel like you could have done so much more with it. This was one of those things, this book, yes, it moves along. There's a lot of really good stuff in it. And like I said, I like where it goes and the story it tells, but it feels like it needed more, or it needed to be shortened, tightened up a little bit, because I just felt like as I was listening to it, I'm like, okay, let's go. When are we going to get to this big part? When are we going to get to the whole reason I'm listening to this book? And that's not good. You should enjoy the entire story. You should enjoy the entire ride. I mean, maybe at the very beginning you're like, okay, let's get going, but that should only be like at least maybe the first 1 or 2 chapters, if that. This book, I just feel like, come on, can we get going? Can we do more? Because I feel like the crust or the cusp of what this book is about and the things we learn about Sally, I feel like that's what this book should be about, and that's what the majority of it should have been. But I don't know, I feel like there's just something missing. They could have done more somehow. But I'm not a professional writer. I'm not a professional author. I don't know. That's just based on what I read. And the final thing was, I mentioned in the positives about getting to go to more worlds, getting to explore more of the holiday towns. And while this is true, it's only like, I think it's 3 that we get to visit. And I'm like, I want to know more. I want to get to see more of these towns. I want to get to know more about them. I want to visit more of them. I want to visit like all the holiday towns now, or at least get a better understanding of it. And maybe this is one of those times where it would be better to see them. I mean, yes, if they describe them, you can visualize them. And they do. But I also feel like, maybe seeing is better when it comes to these types of things. And even the one main town they're in, I feel like time moves really quickly there, and it's, yep, we're here now, we're gone. Even though it's supposed to be like a weekend or more, I think. So overall, I'd say that Long Live the Pumpkin Queen is a solid sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas. There's a lot of really good things in this book, from characters to discoveries to evolution. But by the same token, there's also things that they drop the ball on. Whether it's the pacing of the story, whether it's the inclusion of other characters' behavior not feeling like the movie, or not giving a good reason why they're different. But would I recommend reading this book? If you're a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, then you've probably already read it, or if not, yeah, you'll definitely want to, and you'll enjoy it. If you're not really going to get much out of it. But if you're somebody like me who enjoys that movie, but you're not wholehearted into the whole collecting everything Nightmare Before Christmas, I can recommend it, but you're not going to miss much if you don't. If you want to know the twists and turns and you don't already, then I'd say watch something on YouTube so you know the story and decide for yourself, because that's what I did. So that's my quick thoughts on Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, the sequel to Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, overall, I had a good time with it. But let me know what you thought. Have you read this book? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it a lot more than I did? Did you think it was terrible? What did you think about the revelations in the story? If you haven't read it, do you plan on now? Or whatever your thoughts, don't forget to comment down below. Don't forget to hit that like button. And I am trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. If I do, I'll try to do something special. I'm not sure what yet. But as always, remember, read what you love, enjoy what you love, and let's all work for a better fandom. I'll see you next time.